What's up, Mac Nostalgia? Dave here in our podcast. What's going on in pop culture right now? We got a lot of stuff to get to, a lot of important things to discuss. My 2026 Grammy nominations reaction, the snubs, the surprises, a ton of movies of note. Predator Badlands, Christie, Die My Love, Frankenstein from Guillermo del Toro. Very exciting. Also, new music from Rosalía and ITZY. Oh yeah, we didn't forget TV either. Pluribus, the new show from Vince Gilligan, his follow-up to Breaking Bad. Big deal. So make sure you subscribe. YouTube.com/nostalgiapod. Linktree.com/nostalgiapod. Leave a comment. Let me know what's good, and let's get into it. What's up, Mac Nostalgia? Dave here with my 2026 Grammy nominations reaction. I'm going to talk about all the major categories, who got nominated, who got snubbed, what the surprises were. Last week, I gave my nomination predictions, went through all these categories, so now we'll see how I did and where we're at. At the top, you have Kendrick Lamar with 9 nominations, followed by Lady Gaga with 8, Bad Bunny with 6, and Sabrina Carpenter with 6 as well. All 4 of them nominated for Album of the Year. That was really expected. Nothing too shocking about that. Also in Album of the Year, we have Tyler, the Creator for Chromacopia, which is something I talked about as a strong possibility, but not a lock. Makes some sense. I'm very happy to see Clips here for Let God Sort Him Out. It's, of course, nominated for Best Rap Album of the Year, which we knew would happen. It's the favorite to win, I would think. But to get into Album of the Year as well, my personal Album of the Year in 2025, very exciting. Also here, perhaps more surprisingly, is Justin Bieber for Swag. Obviously, he was in the mix here, but there's a lot of competition in the category. It was by no means a lock, but he did get nominated. The biggest surprise, though, in Album of the Year would have to be Leon Thomas for Mutt, something I did mention as a possibility, but not something I predicted. And he completes the grouping there. And what that means is there's some significant star power that was in the mix here that did not get, the top nominations, such as Lorde, such as Miley Cyrus. The K-pop Demon Hunters album did not, in fact, get the top prize for a nom, although there's nominations elsewhere that we'll see in a second. And of course, The Weeknd, not nominated in Album of the Year. Not the first time he's missed, but he's previously been a staple, so it's, I think, still a bit of a surprise. Song of the Year, we have some songs we expected to be here, right? Bad Bunny with Debut and Mouse Photos, the title track. Sabrina Carpenter for Man Child, Lady Gaga for Abracadabra, all expected, as was Huntrix, K-pop Demon Hunters, EJ song. Golden, we knew that would be here. It is, as is Rosé and Bruno Mars for Apathy, the biggest year in K-pop history in terms of high-end Grammy nominations. Granted, these are songs that are predominantly in English, but still very significant and kind of the first of its kind. Billie Eilish is here for her one-off single Wildflower. Bit of a letdown in the sense that when you nominate everything Billie ever does, then it's almost like you didn't nominate anything to me. Like this is like the second or third time she's gotten a top prize for like a one-off single. It was Everything I Wanted was the same way. It's a bit tired to me personally. Doechii is here for Anxiety, which I mentioned as a possibility, something I was expecting to happen given her Grammy rap album win last cycle. Pretty cool. And Song of the Year, of course, we also have Kendrick Lamar and SZA for Luther. That was pretty much a lock given how both of them individually have been such Grammy stalwarts. So that's Song of the Year, which is very similar to Record of the Year, but there are some differences. In Record of the Year, we still have Wildflower, the Bunny track. We have Luther, Abracadabra, Apathy. No Golden, but Apathy getting in both is pretty cool, pretty sick. Man-Child's here once again as well. Anxiety's here once again as well. The difference, though, is Chappell Roan is also here for The Subway. Another kind of one-off single, kind of getting the Billie treatment, in my opinion. Overall, nothing too shocking in those categories. Best New Artist, kind of in line with expectations, pretty good overall. You knew Alex Warren would be here, although his, big hit this year, Ordinary, not being nominated for the top prizes with Song of the Year, I guess you could call that a surprise. I had been predicting that to happen. Nonetheless, Alex Warren is here for Best New Artist. Maybe that means he's not necessarily the favorite we would have thought he would be in the category, alongside Leon Thomas, who maybe he is the category, considering Mutt was nominated for Album of the Year. Somber is here. Lola Young is here. Addison Rae is here. All expected. I have some quibbles about Addison Rae being called new Talked about that last week. It's her first album. I think it's fine in the end. Cat's Eye is also here, something that we knew was possible. There seems to be a big Cat's Eye push. They also got some pop genre noms as well, which is a bit surprising, but nonetheless it's there. Then you have Olivia Dean and the Marias as well. So who does that mean who didn't get in? I mean, obviously there's a lot of people. I think Megan Maroney was in the mix here. She didn't get through. It's pretty much in line with expectations, and they didn't nominate someone who was glaringly not new like Pink Panthers or Rose, so I'm pretty happy with how it turned out overall. Best pop solo, you have Chapel Roan for Subway, Justin Bieber for Daisies, Lady Gaga Disease, Lil Young Messy, Sabrina Carpenter Manchild. I'm expecting Manchild and Gaga to do really well overall across their fields, but maybe Bieber is stronger than we expected. Pop duo group performance, I'm just kind of surprised to see Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande here for Defying Gravity. I just was assuming that version of a song that already existed wouldn't actually be eligible. Whatever. Golden is here. Cat's Eye is here for Gabriella. Not my favorite song of theirs, to be honest. It is what it is. Apate is here again, which is sick. And then SZA and Kendrick are here for 30 for 30 off the SOS Deluxe from last year. Very inspired nomination. I love that track. Was not expecting that. Best pop vocal album, Bieber, Gaga, Carpenter, makes sense. Miley, nice to see her get something. And then Teddy Swims, which I wasn't expecting. Interesting. What that means is Lorde is shut out of basically everything. Dance Electronic album, I think it's a really strong category overall. FKA Twigs, Pink Panthers, Skrillex are here. Fred again, who I forgot 10 days from last year was actually in this cycle. Love that he's here as well. Great nom. And then Rufus Du Sol. What that means is Kaytranada actually missed out in this category, which looks pretty stacked overall. I love Pink Panthers getting nominated for Dance Pop Recording with Illegal. Also, I love seeing Zara Larsson get a little love with Midnight Sun. Love that album quite a bit. Kaytranada did get a dance electronic recording album for his song Space Invader, which is my favorite song off that album, so that's nice. Also love that Fred Against Hero at Victory Lap, great track. And then lastly, I just want to shout out Hayley Williams for her album Merzapine from earlier this year, getting some love in the rock category, which is cool. She got a handful of noms, very nice. I want to point out Best Alternative Music Album, which is super cool because Tyler, the Creator, got nominated for Don't Tap the Glass, his second of 2 albums in this cycle. Chromacopia, of course, nominated for Album of the Year, also nominated for Best Rap Album, but then Don't Tap the Glass, the more recent album, the album I actually prefer, got a nom in a different category. Think about back in the day, a few years ago, Tyler was talking about how when Igor was winning in the rap categories, he was like, they just kind of put me in that box. They call him urban. They put him in rap because he's black. And now there's actually more of an understanding of, hey, you're not actually always making the genre you came up making. I think it's a nice bit of progression for someone who's actually quite the Grammy darling at this point in Tyler, the Creator. Best rap album overall, Clips for Let God Sort 'Em Out, Kendrick Lamar for GNX, Tyler for Chromacopia, all locks, very, very easy to see that happening. Jid here for God Does Like Ugly, which I was hoping would happen. I like that. And then something that I also expected and talked about last week, Glorilla is here for Glorious. Glorilla also becoming a bit of a Grammy favorite. We knew that from her getting some song nominations last year and then immediately being nominated for Best New Artist when she blew up. And that was actually like an on-time Grammys having their finger on the pulse type thing when that happened a few years back. So Best Rap Album category, honestly pretty good. This hasn't been the most potent year for rap, especially with like newer faces. But there's no like glaring omission, which is what I'm most happy with. Best Rap Song, you have The Birds Don't Sing from Clips. I mean, it wouldn't have really been my pick. That's obviously what they put forward. I would have went with like FICO or, Ace Trumpets. There's So Be It. There's a lot of candidates. Wouldn't have been my first choice. Nonetheless, it's kind of the more like, Grammy-ish type song, with the John Legend chorus and whatnot. I get it. Doechii here for Anxiety, who's maybe the favorite given her strength. Glorilla for TGIF, great track. TV Off from Kendrick. That's probably the pick. And then Tyler in Friends with Sticky. Strong category for sure. Pretty reminiscent of the past year. Best Rap Performance, you have Cardi B with Outside. Clips with Chains and Whips, also featuring Kendrick. Doechii again for Anxiety, Kendrick again for TV Off, and then Tyler and Tizo for Darling I. And then Best Melodic Rap Performance, Friday and Meek Mill, Proud of Me. That's a surprise. Was not expecting that. You have a Jid, Tyler, and Black song, Wholeheartedly. That's fine. Kendrick and SZA for Luther. Makes sense. Party Next Door and Drake are here for Somebody Loves Me. And then lastly, you have a Terrace Martin song, We Mage. Somebody Loves Me from PND and Drizzy. What that means is Nokia's not nominated. What the heck happened here? That's a miss. And maybe that wasn't submitted. I don't know the detail there, but that's a little ridiculous. Like that's the signature rap track that came out this year. Obviously, the Kendrick stuff's from last fall, right? That's a miss to me. Also, I want to note that Central C got overlooked. I like that album quite a bit. Frankly, I would have put his album in the album category if it was up to me. British rap continues to struggle, I guess, at these nominations. We're not all the way there yet. But yeah, overall, I'm happy with these 2026 Grammy nominations. Let me know which nom are you most excited about, which snub are you most mad about, and everything in between. Leave a comment, let me know. And for more Grammy talk, including my official predictions when we're closer to the ceremony in February, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, Blowback Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of ITZY's 11th EP, Tunnel Vision. ITZY back with their third release of the year. Of course, Girls Will Be Girls. That EP came out at the beginning of the year. They also had time for a Japanese EP just a few weeks ago. Now they're back with, once again, another short little taster type project. They love these EPs. ITZY's music has felt like they were throwing paint at the wall for a long time now, and their 11th EP, Tunnel Vision, certainly continues that trend. On one hand, I guess it speaks to the versatility of the group, that they can try so many different sounds and types of genres within the K-pop sphere. On the other hand, it does feel like they're just really trying to find a new direction, find some kind of creative vision and path forward as a group, because the lack of cohesiveness from project to project, year to year, is really paramount at this point. I thought maybe the group would pick up on some of the more club-leaning tracks they did with Girls Will Be Girls and follow through on that. And in a sense, on Tunnel Vision, you do have a lot more of an industrial style of production, certainly unlike anything they've done before. The intro track Focus in particular really brings that home. And on Flicker, you get more of a traditional, fun dance house type beat. And they really managed to jump around a lot over only 6 tracks. So I wouldn't really mind if there was a song that was really grabbing me, but there just isn't. And I find once again that their Japanese releases are much more interesting than their Korean releases. The Japanese release Collector earlier this year, I love the song I Know Me. I think that's great. It's a classic ITZY track to me. I love the energy on that, and I wish they would do stuff like that more often. And this is how I felt, with Ringo and Voltage. It feels like their Japanese tracks always deliver, and then there's such an inconsistency to their Korean music. As I said, that first track, Focus, really just more of an intro, this kind of ethereal vibe with this industrial production, a brief moment of like these chanty vocals at the start. The Tunnel Vision title track, really all kick drum on the production, which I don't mind. But the flatter, lower register vocals on a lot of the verses, I found just not particularly engaging. And even Rujin's staccato rap flow, I just didn't like as much as some of the other types of rapping she's done before. So as far as ITZY title tracks go, it's towards the bottom for me. DYT, I think this is the best song on the project, a lot more engaging. I think it's a really good use of this more industrial theme here. Also a fun use of vocal flair. I think the more robotic performances fit the vibe. The intentionality is actually pretty clear on those, so I like that. Flicker, as I said, it's more of a dance pop song, but it's really a complete vibe shift sound-wise for the rest of the EP to that point. Almost like a deeper house take on that dance pop. I've liked the beat quite a bit. The chorus, though, for me was just a bit too simple. Nocturne, definitely a lot more moody. I think the harmonizing that you do get on it is solid. And then 8-Bit Heart. This one, I respect this one for certainly being out there and taking a chance, taking a bit of a risk here. The onomatopoeia lyrics to the rap on this song, though, I just find that a bit grating. Just not really my style. That being said, as the song is about to end, And during the outro section, you have these anthemic drums just like kind of out of nowhere and like much more traditional singing on top of it. So that was a bit striking. But yeah, ITZY, I remain a fan, but I was not too interested in most of this music. So let me know, what'd you think of ITZY's latest EP, Tunnel Vision? Where are you at with the group at the moment? Let me know. And for more music reviews, more K-pop reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time. What's up, Welcome back Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Rosalia's 4th album, Lux. This is very exciting for numerous reasons. On one hand, I think music observers who've paid attention to Rosalía know why she's such an engaging and exciting artist. Whenever she releases any album, it is a musical event. There is things to be excited about with that music. People know that much. Her last album, Motomami, something I liked quite a bit, was back in 2022, so it's been a good chunk of time, about 3.5 years at this point. Rosalía has really demonstrated herself as such an important musical figure and has accomplished so much in just a few albums. You think about those first 2 records, bringing Spanish flamenco music and culture to the mainstream, and then flipping all of that on its head when Motomami, this I think really engaging and exciting blend of pop in 2022. Along the way, she's become, I think, a lot more mainstream off the success of that album. A song like La Fama having a big weekend feature certainly helps with the mainstreamization of a lot of her music. She was featured on the Lisa album earlier this year, for example. She's about to make her acting debut in HBO's Euphoria Season 3, which is pretty interesting. That being said, Rosalía has never been one to, rust on her laurels in terms of her art. So when we found out a new album was coming and you started to hear that press and figure out what's to come, it seemed pretty clear that it wasn't going to be another album like Motomami. I guess more in the abstract view, it could be like that in terms of kind of blowing up how we think about her music to this point. But it was certainly a pretty hyped moment for me in terms of just not really knowing what to expect. The best word to describe Rosalía's 4th album, Lux, is epic. Once again, Rosalía is doing such incredible genre experimentation, the very definition of the term. So many reference points that you can barely speak to across this wide canvas of an album. She sings in 13 different languages on this. You get orchestral pop, opera, avant-garde alternative pop music. Of course, the flamenco music we've come to associate with her early career. It's an incredibly risky album that does not hold the listener's hand, but has such incredible arrangements and instrumentations that the wow factor of just what you're listening to is so obvious. It's very conceptual, with these 4 movements across the album speaking to 4 different female saints of history. The ending of her engagement to Rav Alejandro also looms large, but you don't even need to know any of these meta points. You don't need to recognize the reference points, but it's just really engaging and captivating music. I think the craft from start to finish is just really impressive. And this is obviously an album that rewards multiple listens and just sitting with the music because there's just so much to process here. Just some notes I had across the track list. I recognize the Spanish lyrics, but a lot of the other lyrics, of course, I can't speak to. It's quite the laundry list of different languages being spoken, which is very cool, very interesting. The first track, Sexo, Violencia y Llantas. I love the way the vocals kind of got doubled as they swelled up. It's a pretty common note I have for this album. The way the vocals are treated is, I think, really important because the instrumentation's so involved across Lux that Rosalía's singing they make a point of making sure it's not like drowned out, and it still pops, and I think it does. The next song, Reliquia, I think the violin is going dumb as hell on this. Sounds really good. Get this brief moment of like bass glitching. It's always keeping you on your toes. Divine Eyes, I think the orchestral outro to this song, again, epic, great stuff there. Porcelana, like our first like darker turn in terms of the mood. Rosalía singing with a deeper register, very haunting. Mio Cristo, Piangi, Diamanti, I think the wild flourishes across that song really grab you, excellent stuff. Next is Bergain, featuring Bjork. And Yves Tumor, of course, getting a Bjork feature is crazy, but it makes a lot of sense for what this album is. This is like an epic opera type song. I think Bjork very much right at home on the chorus here. You have Yves Tumor doing the famous Mike Tyson lyric, the "I'll fuck you until you love me," and it's very repeating. Of course, that was a questionable thing said at the time. It's still questionable to have it into this album on that song. A lot you can read into, I guess, with it. And the song kind of ends with this like distortion, a lot going on for sure. La Perla, I love the strings because they're a little more plucky than before. It's a song that's a lot lighter on its feet. Mundo Nuevo, I think the instrumentation here, great once again. De Madruga, very up-tempo. I love those chant vocals again. Dios es un stalker. I think this one's just really a gem front to back in terms of the whole package of the composition of the song. I think it sounds incredible. La Jugular, I think this song has such great builds. A lot of these songs have clear like beginning, middle, end, like act structures, and the way they lend themselves to these big crescendo type moments. Again, very orchestral, very operatic. It's awesome stuff. And I think the end of La Jugular in particular is really awesome. And I love that sample, which I don't know where it's from, but the seventh heaven, I'm looking for the eighth heaven, the 10th heaven. Like, I love that little vocal at the end there. I think that makes a great touch. And yeah, I mean, this is clearly an album that's not going to like be as commercial as Motomami was, right? Because this is not trying to be inviting. It's not even nodding to mainstream or daring the mainstream to accept it the way a lot of the music on Motomami was, right? So I'm not expecting this music to like dominate on the streaming charts, right? And there's not like any big features on this, but she's such I think a captivating figure just because of between El Mal Querer, Motomami, and now Lux. I mean, talk about a 3-album run. I mean, this has to be up there for one of the most significant 3-album runs in terms of what's been accomplished in terms of major pop figures of the, I don't know, at least the last 15 years, if not longer. Like, I think it's a really significant, body of work that is still got plenty of juice left in the squeeze for sure. Rosalía is not super old and seems incredibly motivated to speak her truth in really unique ways. So I really like the album. I need to listen to it a lot more times to process more of it. Let me know what you thought of Rosalía's 4th album, Lux. What did you like most about it? Let me know. And for more music reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Star Wars Visions Season 3. Out now in full on Disney Plus, the latest iteration of this Star Wars animated anthology series, non-canon. Season 1 dropped in 2021, Season 2 2 years ago. Now we're back with Season 3. I continue to really enjoy Star Wars Visions simply because it's free from the restrictions of Star Wars canon. There's a lot of creativity in this anthology series. Does every episode of this series work? No, of course not. Like most anthology series, there are ups and there are downs, but new creators are able to take chances, take risks, and tell cool stories and cool ideas within the Star Wars world that we know and love. Sometimes it's lower stakes. Sometimes it's really too abstract to have a long future as Star Wars storytelling, but it's still quite cool. And now we're experiencing the first sequel episodes from Visions, and we're actually getting a spin-off of the 9th Jedi episodes as a new series. It really shows you the potential with Star Wars storytelling when we're a little bit more relaxed in what types of stories we're trying to tell. And that by no means is a replacement for good and compelling canon Star Wars that, of course, we all want and really need right now. But I do think there's a really compelling place for what Visions is doing at the moment. Season 3 really doesn't waste any time with giving you the first sequel episodes of Visions to date, but really going to heavy hitters from Season 1. The Duel Payback, a follow-up to The Duel, the very first episode of Season 1. And then we also get the 9th Jedi Child of Hope, which of course is the follow-up to the 9th Jedi, also from Season 1. And then, kind of surprisingly, I actually hadn't realized this was coming ahead of time, but The Lost Ones is actually a sequel of sorts to The Village Bride, also from Season 1. And I think overall, I really enjoyed these sequels, particularly The Duel and 9th Jedi sequels. The 9th Jedi really knocked me out when I first saw it. I rewatched it several times. That to me was like the platonic ideal of what you want non-canon Star Wars to be with. I thought it was really cool and effective and tight world building, because of course this is all brand new Star Wars within the Star Wars that we recognize. And I think there were some cool takes on the Jedi and Sith relationship, being connected to the Force, things like that, the cool visual of the lightsaber color being affected by the person wielding it, things like that. I really enjoyed that first episode. And then you get the Ninth Jedi Child of Hope with season 3 here, and it's quite the different spin. It's really more of a two-hander and not as grand and combat focused as the original Ninth Jedi episode. But the introduction of this new droid who we meet and then say goodbye to in this episode, Teto, great stuff. And the Ninth Jedi animation continues to be really stellar. Of course, it's from Production IG, one of the most celebrated and prolific, Japanese animation studios, Ghost in the Shell back in the day, Haikyuu more recently. And yeah, I think the fact that we're getting a Ninth Jedi limited series, spin-off series on Disney Plus in 2026 is really compelling, because I think from the moment most people saw that first episode of Ninth Jedi, you're like, wow, there's so much here. And the creators of this have a lot to say and a lot to tell, and it's cool. And we should welcome that. We should be willing to treat that, as kind of perfect streaming service storytelling, right? That actually makes a lot of sense to tell a story like that in both in animation and just throwing it up on Disney Plus. I think it's great for that, and I'm really much looking forward to that. If you think about where Star Wars is at right now, of course we know The Mandalorian and Grogu is coming out in May, our first movie since 2019. Star Wars Starfighter is in production. Another movie will finally exist. But in terms of TV shows, Ahsoka Season 2 is either in production or wrapped production recently. It's just animation these days, right? The Acolyte was canceled. Vision Season 3, I assume we'll get a 4, but we know we're getting that Ninth Jedi spin-off. Maul Shadow Lord's coming. Animation's carrying a lot these days. We still don't know what the follow-up animated series to The Bad Batch might be. We assume there'll be something, from that tree, the Clone Wars tree. We're not sure. But yeah, Ninth Jedi Child of Hope, really loved it. Also the dual payback. I mean, the two dual episodes very clearly evoking, Kurosawa. I think the first episode really reminds you of parts of Seven Samurai, parts of Yojimbo. And it makes sense that they made a sequel to this, because they actually made a spin-off manga series regarding the Ronin, the lead character of the duel. And they did 2 one-shot comics as well. So that potential seemed pretty clear. I thought that the dual payback also was awesome. There's just tons of cool visuals. Like, if you're just like a Star Wars freak, like, there's just cool stuff. The various kind of lightsaber apparatuses in both episodes of the duel, really awesome. This ex-Sith turned Sith hunter as a concept, really cool. This mobile gambling hall in Walkers is cool. In general, the influence and appreciation, homage to various forms of Japanese culture, whether it's like architectural stylings or obvious cultural references like the samurai and things. Of course, these are largely Japanese creators making these episodes of Visions. It's a cool melding, of course. And Lucas, as we know, a open advocate and admirer of the work of Kurosawa, and talking about how it influenced him when making Star Wars and stuff. Shout out The Hidden Fortress. So unsurprisingly, those 2 sequel episodes to the best of Visions to date really worked. I would love to see a sequel to Journey to the Dark End from season 2, by the way. You also get the sequel to The Village Bride, which I liked from season 1, The Lost Ones. Overall, I didn't really care for this sequel nearly as much. I thought it was just a bit too abstract for me, although I thought the animation was pretty cool. Episode 2, The Song of Four Wings, this cassette playing funky astromech droid was pretty cool. Sandcrawler mining drill. Sometimes it's just like fun, like little visuals or callbacks, and you hear sound effects, and things like that. But that episode was pretty solid. Bounty Hunters, episode 4, I liked as well. The assassin protocol on the medical droid was amusing. The Droideka appearance, pretty solid. Again, like a lot of these are like, there's nothing like too in depth with them. Obviously, we're talking about 15-20 minute one-off shorts. So like for what they are, I think they largely satisfy. Sometimes the ceiling is low as a result. That's okay. Like, I think Yuko's Treasure, inherently more of a juvenile type of story, young kid, teddy bear, droid. It's not the most in-depth or mature story, but for what it was pretty solid. I like The Smuggler a ton. That's from Studio Trigger. Studio Trigger made 2 episodes in season 1, The Twins and The Elder. Love The Elder. And of course, they're well known for Kill la Kill, the animated series, Cyberpunk Edge Runners as well. I think The Smuggler, I love that narrator with the backdrop, bit of a Western music as you get going. Animation was awesome. Yeah, a dogfight, a hidden lightsaber, a cool bounty hunter. That I think that episode, The Smuggler, a lot of potential for a sequel, just because it also felt quite rich right away. The Bird of Paradise, this one is a bit more abstract. I mean, you start in media res with this Jedi and Sith duel. Animation's very saturated, kind of a callback to the style we saw in season 2 in The Bandits of Golak. But this episode really becomes like a bit of a mood piece, a bit of a homage to the Dagobah cave sequence in Empire Strikes Back in terms of Luke processing things within his own head and right now. Like there's a callback to the lead character seeing themselves dead on the ground, kind of similar. I think that episode was fine. I think visually it's impressive, but overall not my favorite. And then to end the series, you have Black, directed by Shinya Ohira. And Ohira is very notable as a veteran, animation veteran of the Japanese animation. I mean, he's a key animator for Akira. He was a key animator for countless Studio Ghibli films, from Porco Rosso to The Boy and the Heron and just about everything in between. Like a true animation vet, like one of the real ones. And this is an incredibly stylized, dialogue-free, jazz-infused, at times cel-shaded, but the animation's really going up and down throughout, series of vignettes of memories within the mind of a stormtrooper. Incredibly experimental. I think it's one of the most compelling episodes of Visions because it has a lot to say, but it's doing it in a more sophisticated way, again, without any dialogue. And such a visual feast in terms of its changing and layered animations, its color styles, its grading, everything's so all over the place in intentional ways. It flows, and it really kind of speaks to a bit of depth, a bit of introspection on the part of someone we associate as a villain. I think there's a lot you can read into that episode, and an episode like Black is another great, reason and compelling case for why we want to advocate for allowing this type of storytelling to exist in Star Wars, something that's largely been under lock and key. That was really cool. Let me know, though, what did you think of Star Wars Visions Volume 3, Season 3? What do you want to see next? Which episodes are you looking forward to seeing a sequel from next? Are you excited for the 9th Jedi spin-off series next year? Let me know. And for more TV reviews, more Star Wars, subscribe. And I'll see you next time. What's up, welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Pluribus, the new Apple TV Plus science fiction series from Vince Gilligan, starring Ray Seahorn. This is an exciting debut for any fan of television because, of course, this is the Vince Gilligan follow-up to Breaking Bad. And yes, Breaking Bad, of course, had a prequel series with the impeccable Better Call Saul, but Vince Gilligan was only kind of tangentially involved in the creation of that series, especially he was more involved in the beginning of that show, kind of left the show more to Peter Gould as it went on. But, of course, Better Call Saul was where the revelation that was Ray Seahorn as an actor came from. Of course, her role as Kim Wexler, absolutely unforgettable. And the fact that she's getting a chance now to be a leading top of the call sheet performer for this high profile show from Vince Gilligan, it's very exciting. And Vince Gilligan, it's pretty obvious, right? The creator of Breaking Bad, one of the signature television showrunners of the 20th century at this point. And of course, Vince Gilligan's specific talents as a really talented writer and thinker and creator of scenarios, but also really excellent and effective television filmmaker in terms of being able to get a lot out of the constraints of television, especially when he was making a show like Breaking Bad, in the late aughts and whatnot. Really exciting that we finally have his follow-up show. We had the Breaking Bad Netflix film, but apart from that, it's been a lot of waiting. And in fact, there was actually a ton of secrecy about what Pluribus even was. All we really knew was that Ray Seahorn was the star. There was really strict NDA and secrecy around what the premise of the series was and what was going on. And that really continued up until the premiere of the first 2 episodes on Apple TV Plus. And the show will continue through the end of the year. The final episode will actually air on Christmas. And it's just a really exciting time. Vince Gilligan's Apple TV series Pluribus is immediately compelling due to its impressive sci-fi scope. What if most of the humans on Earth become infected, possessed by some kind of foreign alien hive mind, thus leaving a very small amount of unaffected humans to try and pick up the pieces as the world is completely collapsed around them? Very ambitious, especially given the secrecy surrounding the show. And when the lead of this show, someone who has not been infected, is none other than Ray Seahorn in her first lead role following her impeccable breakout on Better Call Saul, it's hard not to be too excited. The premiere of the show does a great job at communicating the end of this world, and now it's time to see what kind of hijinks we get up to, because we don't really know too much about what's to come, but it's hard not to have complete faith in the creator of Gilligan's talents. Watching as the infection, spread in that lab, cameo performance from Karen Sony present, and seeing how they would affect each other with a kiss and spreading it by licking donuts and stuff. And, before you know it, basically the whole world seemingly has been gripped. And we learn later that there's like 12 people that didn't get affected. And the aliens, the hive mind, doesn't know why, and they're just gonna figure out how best to rectify that. But they seem peaceful. They're not gonna push the issue, at least right now. And that is I think that is fascinating. It makes for a really great scene in episode 1 where Seahorn's Carol, she calls the number on the screen when she turns on C-SPAN, and it's like the one television show that's still airing, and she sees this person who's not the press secretary. It's like some low-level government figure, some cabinet undersecretary guy. He's just standing there waiting for her to call. Really great scene, and that's where he does, I think, a really compelling exposition dump and telling Carol what's going on, and with a big smile on his face, right? But before that, seeing the various kind of the horde of people getting affected and walking and in unison as a crowd, right? Like in the beginning with the lab, you see them all preparing infections in unison with all this rhythm, like an assembly line. Just a lot of great sequences in that first episode. And Carol, we haven't learned too much about her for the most part, apart from her being kind of a writer of schlock novels that she doesn't even really enjoy, but it's just made her, a successful author, a bit of a more famous person and all that. We know that much about her, but before long, it's just crisis time. She's trying to save her agent, her compatriot, who's also been taken, and of course she also sees a lot of death, right? As all this seemingly ground zero type moment where seemed to affect everyone at once, and there's crashed cars and fires and all manner of chaos has happened due to this psychosis happening. It's hard to read too much into the future of the plot. I did think the very beginning of the series where astronomers detect this radio signal from outside, the Milky Way or whatever, and they just don't know what's going on, and they keep trying to figure things out. Obviously, that has something to do with what's happened. Perhaps literally hearing the signal is what caused it. We will find out in time. But I'm just really excited. And, again, Ray Seahorn, truly masterful on Better Call Saul. It's unfortunate that she's really still completely unknown to people that did not watch Saul. But if you know, you really know. So I'm really excited about this. And I think it's a show that probably won't rate like super high right away. Like it doesn't have the star power or even the marketing push that other Apple shows usually have. But it's certainly going to be a word of mouth thing as that word gets out about Vince Gilligan's new show. So I'm hopeful about the show's success in the future. But yeah, in the meantime, let's get on this ride and see where it takes us. Let me know, though, what did you think of the beginning of Pluribus? What are you most looking forward to seeing on this series? And for more TV reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, all about nostalgia? Dave here with a review of Die My Love, the new black comedy drama film from Lynne Ramsey, starring Jennifer Lawrence and Robert Pattinson. This film is quite notable, of course, because it's the first film from Lynne Ramsey since You Were Never Really Here came out way back in 2018. That was a movie I liked quite a bit, starring Joaquin Phoenix. Really propulsive and powerful film. And Die My Love is a lot different than that, for sure. And the film was theatrically released by Mubi in a wide debut. Lynne Ramsey's Die My Love takes a lot of swings and should be applauded for the riskiness of its filmmaking, the riskiness of its storytelling. Jennifer Lawrence plays a new mother who is struggling with parenthood while also seeing her relationship with her husband crumble. That husband, played by Robert Pattinson. You have a lot of star power in this movie. The problem, though, is that the storytelling is way too opaque for me, and the drama of the film just does not feel real. While there's a lot of impressive stylistic decisions, any emotional weight you're trying to feel watching this film does not work. They just do not feel like real characters to me. So when you watch them make a lot of poor decisions, both together and individually, it's hard to be too motivated with the story. That said, we like when our good actors take chances, and this was definitely a risky script. So no harm, no foul, but the film just did not work for me. Unfortunately, it's coming at kind of bad timing for Lawrence with the Oscar race, just because there's been a bunch of mom roles that have gotten acclaim this year, notably Hamnet with Jessie Buckley, and If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You with Rose Byrne. And Jennifer Lawrence seems pretty clearly to be at the back of that pack, given that the reception to Die My Love has not been nearly as strong as those other two films. And I think she does a very capable job. It's a very mature role, but it asks a lot, right? A new mother who does not have things together as she develops this postpartum depression that kind of expands beyond the traditional definition of that diagnosis into a form of psychosis. And you're watching acting out, you're watching abnormal behavior, you're watching child endangerment, in general, just bad judgment, and where that line starts and ends in terms of blaming the person versus blaming what's afflicting them. It's, of course, a delicate thing, a case-by-case basis in reality. But when you watch this movie, these just don't feel like real people to me. I think from the beginning, I was just kind of struggling with the manic id that seemed to possess both of them in the relationship when it was going well in the early days, as we see before they get pregnant and then have this newborn child. It didn't feel like a drama that was grounded in anything. And you see these other scenes as she begins to have dalliances with a neighbor of sorts, a neighbor character played by Lakeith Stanfield, and a lot of it's very abstract and opaque in terms of it doesn't really, I think, hold your hand through a lot of the plot. But on the other hand, there's just no standout moment of storytelling in the beginning, and it has a notable ending. It's a flashy ending for sure. And this movie is based on a book, made some changes to it. I just really struggled to connect with watching these people have a hard time, specifically this mother have a hard time. Pattinson, of course, he's never bad. It's cool to see him and Lawrence in a two-hander like this. I really enjoyed that. I think he plays off her energy well, playing this kind of country guy, gets married, has his kid, but doesn't seem like the most present partner. I will say I think everything with the dog in their relationship works pretty well. I think that point was driven home. And in terms of Lynne Ramsey's contributions, I mean, the camera moves a lot, which is a change from the very beginning, where we have this static shot as we watch them enter this home that Pattinson's character has inherited from his family. It's a pretty run down out in the country type house. And then from there, there's just a lot more movement. There's a lot of visual flashes and frames that really kind of change things and different kinds of sequences and whatnot. It's not a straightforward piece by any means, but there's a lot of directing flair. I just have major issues with how the script works, because I just don't think the characters are successful in the end, despite good performances, despite, capable cinematography and all that. So it was a swing, and we like it when our star actors take swings. This is probably the biggest swing Jennifer Lawrence has taken since Mother, right? Similar themes, of course. And you like it when they work with great directors, like someone like Lynne Ramsey with, storied career, celebrated career in indie cinema. So it is what it is. I don't think this movie's going to make too much noise beyond this opening weekend, though. Let me know, what'd you think of Die My Love? Did this movie work for you? And I would not be shocked if mothers who have experienced postpartum depression, assumingly in less extreme ways than depicted in this film, but I'd not be shocked if people who have experienced that maybe have a different response to the character. But let me know either way how you felt about it. And for more film reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up, welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Frankenstein, the new gothic drama film from Guillermo del Toro, out now on Netflix, of course, adapting the Mary Shelley Frankenstein novel, one of the all-time classics. And this film stars Oscar Isaac as Dr. Victor Frankenstein, Jacob Elordi as Frankenstein's monster, and Mia Goth as Lady Elizabeth. We also see Charles Dance as Victor Frankenstein's father. Christoph Waltz pops up as a benefactor of the Doctor. David Bradley, Lars Mikkelsen, some familiar faces round out the cast. And since that 1818 novel, Frankenstein, of course, has been adapted numerous times. I think despite all those direct adaptations and then various spin-offs. I think the one from the 30s is the most iconic, iteration of Frankenstein. But there's been so many other spin-offs and offshoots, and of course, furthermore, tons of inspiration in terms of what Frankenstein has meant to larger, horror storytelling, monster storytelling, and things of that nature. And Guillermo del Toro, someone who, of course, is no stranger to dealing in more occult subject matter, monster subject matter, but also even more of the dramatic themes of a story like Frankenstein, certainly something that's right at home with him. He's actually been advocating and talking about trying to make his own Frankenstein movie for many, many years at this point. And now Del Toro seems like he's at a place in his career where he has so much requisite clout, of course, coming off The Shape of Water, winning Best Picture, Nightmare Alley being nominated for Best Picture, Pinocchio being quite successful at Netflix. Now he's run it back with a pretty substantial budget from Netflix to do it all again. Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein film is an enjoyable adaptation of a classic story. The production design, the costumes really jump out. The budget is noticeable. However, thematically, I don't know if there's too much under the surface of this story. It's more of a what you see is what you get. But I did really enjoy the film despite a pretty long runtime, despite more time being spent with Dr. Frankenstein and less with the monster. I think Oscar Isaac does a good job as Victor Frankenstein, and Jacob Elordi is able to communicate a lot with limited screen time and limited lines as the monster. Despite a long runtime, though, there are some moments of the script that I think could have used a lot more work for this to make more of an emotional impact than it ends up making. The structure of the film, I wasn't the biggest fan of, where we have the monster chasing the Doctor out in the Arctic somewhere where they encounter a Russian sailing vessel on its way to the North Pole, captained by Lars Mikkelsen's character. They encounter the Doctor, who's wounded himself, and he's fleeing the monster, and we see this, this set piece where the monster kills a lot of the sailors in his pursuit to, seek revenge against the Doctor. And while I did enjoy the set piece, and I like that they actually built, it built like a ship set, and the CGI landscape around it, like I think it worked fine. I just don't know if we necessarily needed to immediately do a narration, let's flash back and figure out how we all got here type structure. It's just a bit frustrating. And as a change from the book, the book, I believe it's a series of letters that Frankenstein is sharing with the captain versus actually like physically being there with the captain. And then we learn it's going to be like a 2-chapter play type thing. And the first chapter is all about, the Doctor's POV. And we see a lot. And I think the weakest part about this is we spent a lot of time with young Victor as a young boy, learning about his daddy issues. His dad, played by Charles Dance, incredibly typecast in the role as a non-loving, non-supporting, but yet very wealthy father. They try and tell us how Victor is somehow, he was always creepy or obsessive, and that's why he wasn't as well liked by others, and his younger brother was the favorite son and things of that nature. I just don't know if that necessarily like comes across well enough. It's a lot of showing, less telling to me. You know, he comes across as a boy who was connected to his mom and then upset when his mom died and didn't have a loving dad. I think we could have did away with a lot of that, to be honest. I know that they're trying to set the seeds for the relationship that he has with his brother later on. I thought some of that was pretty thin, though. I like picking it up though when we see the Doctor Victor as an adult, now played by Oscar Isaac, and he's making this presentation to the Royal College, Academy of Sciences, something like that, in England. You know, Ralph Ineson's like the judge of the proceedings, and he does this kind of showy sham demonstration of his talents and what he's seeking in terms of trying to reanimate life from a dead body, and kind of playing on using electricity to show the reflexes of muscles and things like that to simulate someone kind of being alive when they no longer were. A broadly plausible type thing, of course, in an increasingly implausible fantasy story. I like the scene. And then you get the introduction of Christoph Waltz as this wealthy benefactor who also happens to be the uncle of Victor's brother's bride-to-be. And he liked the presentation and wants to fund Victor's pursuit of, this reanimation. And that brings us into the fold. We meet Mia Goth, who plays the fiance of Victor's brother, the nephew of Christoph Waltz, and we spend a lot of time in the tower that Waltz is able to supply for Victor. And the tower definitely comes across as quite CG. I think the rooms looked okay, but a lot of like the bigger scenes definitely looked obviously pretty computer generated. It fits the gothic vibe fine, and I think like the mood and like the desaturation, I actually didn't mind how it like visually appeared. But to me, the story just gets pretty heavy-handed after a while. Like I think the build up to like Victor like breathing life into the Frankenstein his monster for the first time, I thought that was pretty cool. Like, I liked how that went. But then from there, it's like you just like see everything coming a mile away. And I know part of this is the source material, but like, Victor being the true monster is like the takeaway an hour before someone actually says it out loud in the movie, and how he treats the monster who doesn't know any better, is so innocent, right? Despite being so hideous and so slow on the uptake to learn things, apparently, right? Elordi, to his credit, I think does a lot of good stuff. Of course, covered in prosthetics, completely unrecognizable. But in terms of the mannerisms and the physical acting of the character, and then slowly but surely communicating, I think, a lot with his gestures, with his face, and the few lines he can speak as this character learns newer words and things like that, and how to express himself. I think he does a lot. And when the movie goes to Act 2 and we get to go to, the monster's perspective, as the monster has stormed into the ship and is now telling Victor and the captain his side of the story, it's like, oh, wow, okay, there's more here. And I really like that. I would have liked more time with this side. I think if we could have excised Victor's childhood scenes and given more time with the monster, I think the movie would have been better for it. Because to me, the biggest thing missing throughout all of the film is the relationship between the monster and Mia Goth's Lady Elizabeth. Lady Elizabeth has some kind of connection, some kind of pity and feeling towards the monster, and clearly seeing how Victor is mistreating him. And then that connection, that interest continues throughout the movie as they meet in a few other locations. But I just thought that it just wasn't developed enough for me. And I just would have liked a lot more time with that relationship. It just didn't. It felt kind of rushed, which is disappointing because it's a long movie that's spending a lot of time elsewhere that we didn't necessarily need to do personally. So I think it's just a miscalculation in terms of what character moments, what stuff needed more time. But I really adore. I think my favorite part of the movie, honestly, is when the monster has survived and escaped, and he's out on his own, and he meets this family, like with a small, like kind of homestead on like the edge of a forest, not far from the tower of which he was birthed. And that's where he becomes the spirit of the forest, as he's coined, and he kind of takes care of the family anonymously, gathering wood for them and building structures and things, and while hiding out in like one of their back rooms secretly. And he develops a relationship with David Bradley, who plays the family patriarch, this old man who is blind and thus cannot see what the monster looks like. And I thought David Bradley was really excellent and really affecting in this role. David Bradley, of course, long storied career, probably most famously known for as Argus Filch on Harry Potter, Walder Frey on Game of Thrones. You recognize his voice in this role. I thought he was really lovely. I really loved his scenes with the monster, because especially Lordy's able to emote a lot more at this point in the movie. I really love that stuff. But yeah, as I said, I just think the stuff with Lady Elizabeth needed more time to have more of an emotional wallop. You dislike Victor almost the entire time. The movie's very sympathetic to the monster, and which kind of lends itself to Del Toro's sensibilities and POV that we would associate with him. So it makes sense that it went this way. But it's a movie that doesn't really lend itself to a lot more interpretation, because it so clearly tells you who to sympathize with and who to root against. And I think there's room for more nuance in a telling of Frankenstein. Not all of those tellings are like that, of course. But from someone like Guillermo del Toro, it just doesn't feel like the movie, again, rises up beyond what it shows you. So still like the movie. Again, I think it's a really excellent looking film. I think the acting is strong across the board. The production design, the budget is paramount, right? It's very flashy, portrayal of Frankenstein. It's cool. I just would have liked it to be just a little bit more. Like, it's not a transcendent film to me, but it's a good one. Let me know, though, what'd you think of Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein? What'd you like most about it? Do you think it'll be an Oscar contender? Odds are it's going to get a Best Picture nomination. It feels like this could be the strongest film that Netflix puts forth in the end. Of course, they have a handful in the mix here. Some below the line and craft nominations also would make some sense to predict, but in terms of victories, I'm not really sure if we can predict much at this point. Let me know, though, what do you think? Are you rooting for this film? Let me know. And for more movie reviews, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. What's up? Welcome back to Nostalgia. Dave here with a review of Predator Badlands, the latest science fiction film in the Predator franchise from Dan Trachtenberg. All of a sudden, Dan Trachtenberg has made 3 Predator movies and has become the increasingly official paragon and leader and creative force behind the Predator franchise. Following Prey, which was a pandemic Hulu smash that we wish was released in theaters. In hindsight, of course. And then earlier this year, the animated anthology film Predator Killers of Killers followed up just a few months later, Predator Badlands, 2 Predator films in 1 year. One could argue that the Predator franchise, as an IP, has never been in a stronger and healthier place. And that's because Predator Badlands is an absolute blast. This film does so much with Predator lore and is perfectly self-contained in its own right, while also referencing future crossovers with the Alien franchise. The simple choice of foregrounding a Predator character as our lead hero in a Predator film goes a long way, especially when that story is taking place on a dangerous foreign planet as opposed to back on Earth. Elle Fanning in a dual role as Weyland-Yutani androids is fantastic, one of her best performances to date. I really enjoyed the film, and I can't wait for more Predator. And I think if you want to give Trachtenberg some kind of ethos or mission for how he's treated the property, I think Prey was just a really sophisticated story. I wouldn't put Badlands' story on quite that level. Prey is a lot more grounded, but also a bit more traditional in terms of the similarities in storytelling to the original Predator films. Badlands, though, giving us the lead character of Deck, a young runt predator, young runt Yautja, who basically flees his homeland from his vindictive and fist wielding father, who just wants him to be culled from the herd. it's good motivation as like a sort of like fish out of water like beginning. There's a lot of great training montages and equipment gathering as Dek begins to learn the ways of Genna, this very dangerous planet that he's gone to hunt the callus, this grand prize that has felled previous predator hunters. And it's just a great premise. And before long, we meet up with Elle Fanning's character of Thea, a synthetic from Weyland-Yutani who is damaged and needs his help. Her legs are literally gone. And they strike up an alliance of sorts, a mutual agreement to help each other. He can get her back to her legs. She can get him to the location of his quest. It works well. And Fanning is able to, I think, play the android character well, because she's playing a type of synth that has a bit more emotional capacity. And I think it's the latest great entry of synthetic characters in the Alien franchise. Of course, Weyland-Yutani Corporation, the titular big corporation in the Alien franchise. We just spent plenty of time with Weyland-Yutani in Alien Earth on FX and Hulu earlier this year. It's really exciting to see such a overt crossover once again. We have not had a meaningful crossover between Alien and Predator since the Alien vs. Predator films in the mid-2000s. The future of that is very exciting, given that we're also really happy with where Alien's at these days, between Alien Romulus being a great reboot and Alien Earth being a really successful first television show for the property. To have Elle Fanning jump right into a pretty storied history of synthetic characters in the Alien franchise. Of course, Ian Holm and Michael Fassbender would like a word if you're talking about who's the best, right? I think she does a really, really awesome job, especially once we meet her counterpart, this other android, Thea, who is still much more mission-oriented in terms of what they're trying to do on this planet. I really liked all that. I think it's a really effective crossover that doesn't get in the way of the movie, doesn't beat you over the head with anything like that. And it also isn't confusing to someone who isn't up on all the Alien films. Like you wouldn't have to know anything about Alien to appreciate what that character is doing. That they're just a synthetic character. It's just a corporation. But if you know Alien, like hopefully most Predator fans do, then that just makes you even more excited for the future. So it works both ways. It's not like intrusive world building. It's not an intrusive like Easter egg or anything like that. And, the journey of Dek as he grows stronger and adapts to the world and, faces his mission. Is anything super surprising about how that plotting goes? No, not really. A lot of it's quite conventional. But that's fine because it's such a great time to be with. And I think there's a lot of hand-wringing about Predator Badlands not being a rated R Predator movie, being only PG-13. And I don't think that those quibbles, silly as they are, have any merit, honestly, when you watch the movie, because I think it's a really great blast and has a lot of fun with the concept of predators and their the juxtaposition of them being so sophisticated with technology and space travel and all of that, but still having this bloodlust that they put all this value on in terms of pride and worth and things like that. I think Trachtenberg has kind of put that in a little bit, and it comes up in Killers of Killers as well. Of course, the alien creature they encounter, Bub, I think makes a huge impression as well. There's some of the best humor in the film revolves around Bub. I really enjoyed that levity that he was able to bring, because again, Dek the whole time is going to still speak in the tongue of the Oucha, versus Elle Fanning is speaking in English. Bub is speaking in animal noises, so it's not the most in-depth script, right? Similar to the way Prey operates, for example. But yeah, I think Bub was a great addition to the crew, and I love where the film ends too. Does that last confrontation that Dek has at the very end of the movie, did that feel a little bit quick? Maybe. Did I necessarily even need that in the movie at all? Not necessarily, but I love the brief reference of where it ends, right? Where there's an immediate realization of a future potential foe. I thought that was a great place for the film to end. So I'm very optimistic about the franchise with Trachtenberg at the helm. It seems like Predator under still under the Fox, 20th Century Studios and all that, but now under the auspices of Disney, it seems like there's nothing really to worry about. The same way there's really nothing to worry about with Alien under the Disney umbrella now too. So feeling good. Shout out Elle Fanning though. I mean, between Sentimental Value and Predator Badlands being released weeks apart in the fall, of course, A Complete Unknown just a year ago, she's, I think, really like cooking, really coming on as a leading woman, as a star. And this was, I think, my favorite performance of hers, just because she had to show so many sides, and I think it was really, really compelling, because it's a character that isn't able to do much of a physical performance, because for most of the film she's obviously without her legs and thus is only moving with her torso. So I think she did a really good job of handling those synthetic emotes in just the right way. And we got to shout out the actor who plays Dek, as well as plays Dek's father, and that would be Demetrius Schuster Kolomatangi, who is a young New Zealand actor. This is one of his first roles. He, of course, does all the physical performance as well as the mocap for both these roles. And I think Dek does feel like a real character. And you think about like Predator characters, Yautja characters. Usually, again, they're the antagonists. Usually, they're with their invisibility cloak. They're the hunter. They're not saying a whole lot, right? So Dek is also showing a new side of that in a way we haven't really seen too much of. So yeah, I think it's a complete success as a film. It's a complete success as a crossover, something to get you excited about for the future of Predator and Alien, for that matter. Really happy with it. Also, on the business side of things, it's going to open around like Tron Ares opening, a little bit below Alien Romulus. But the key here is, like Alien Romulus, Predator Badlands is appropriately budgeted and does not have this outsized price tag the way Tron Ares did. So this is going to be a successful film. But, many sci-fi franchises and sci-fi films in general that aren't heavy hitters like Star Wars, you don't really hit too many home runs at the box office with these kind of things. Sci-fi doesn't perform that way. You hit good doubles, and that's what this film is going to do business-wise. And I think the budget came across well. I think there's one note to have about the film visually, which overall I think the CGI is very strong. Obviously, there has to be a lot of it in the movie. The one thing you could, I guess, say is that some of the backdrops are pretty dark, like the skies of Genna, even especially the skies of his home planet where we begin. Not the most like engaging backdrops, but I guess it maybe kind of hides the fact that it's all computer generated. Overall, though, the callus is a very, very impressive animation, for example. So yeah, I think like this is a great example of how you make franchises that are not A-list franchises, how you make them appropriately, where you're not compromising the success and the creativity behind the film, but you're also not really setting yourself up to fail financially in the process. So hats off for everyone involved. Predator Badlands, really happy with it. Let me know, though, what did you think of this Predator film? Are you excited for the future of the franchise? Let me know. And for more movie reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time. All right, that's going to do it for the pod this week. Next week, the train keeps on rolling. We have Edgar Wright's The Running Man, starring Glenn Powell, out in theaters, as well as Now You See Me 3. On Netflix, Richard Linklater's Nouvelle Vague is coming out. I'm also going to catch the Nuremberg film I missed, the Danny Brown album I missed. NCT Dream is releasing a new project. It's a busy time. This is the best time of year, though, for the pod, because there's tons of important things to get into. So make sure you subscribe. youtube.com/nostalgiapod, linktree.com/nostalgiapod. See links below. Get the best of 2025 Spotify playlist linked below. Let me know what is good. Leave a comment, and I'll see you next week.